What if a single mark on your face could rewrite your story and someone else's? Picture this. A war veteran, her face etched with the scars of sacrifice, steps into a world of twinkling lights and childhood dreams, only to face a piercing judgment that threatens to shatter her fragile peace. This is Elena Carter's reality as she enters Dreamland Toy Emporium in Chicago on a frosty November morning in 2024, the air sharp with the promise of winter. At 36, Elena is a woman shaped by 9 years in the U.S. Army, her fingers tingling with the cold, a sensation that pulls her back to the blistering deserts of Iraq, where she once defused bombs to save lives. But today isn't about the ghosts of war. It's about her niece, Lily, who's turning 8 and yearning for a magical birthday gift. The store hums with early Christmas cheer. Glittering snowflakes dangle from the ceiling, artificial trees shimmer with ornaments, and the scent of peppermint wafts from a hidden diffuser, wrapping Elena in a fleeting moment of calm. Elena, 3 years post-discharge, still navigates the jagged edges of civilian life, each simple task, like picking a gift, a small triumph over the chaos of her past. She spots the unicorn-themed Lego set Lily has been dreaming of, its pastel box gleaming under the store lights, and tucks it under her arm, a smile softening her features. But as she reaches for a fairy tale puzzle, her fingers graze the left side of her face, where a jagged scar stretches from her eyebrow to her jaw, a brutal souvenir from an IED explosion in Mosul. The scar tightens in the cold, a physical reminder of the emotional weight she carries, a weight she's learned to bear but never fully release. A group of children races past, their laughter a bright melody of the innocence she fought for, and for a moment, Elena feels grounded, the warmth of their joy a balm to her soul. But then she feels it, a stare, sharp and unyielding, cutting through the festive haze. A man in a tailored suit stands nearby, his polished shoes gleaming, a Rolex glinting as he checks his phone with a bored expression. Beside him, a little girl in a lavender coat bounces excitedly, pointing at a castle playset while a store clerk scribbles her requests. Elena tries to focus on the puzzle, but the man's gaze lingers, and she instinctively tilts her head to hide her scar, a reflex born from years of shielding herself from judgment. When she glances back, he's whispering to the store manager, a wiry man with a name tag reading Martin, and Elena's stomach tightens with a familiar dread. Now, imagine you're Elena, a veteran proud of your service, yet the weight of that stare makes your heart race with shame. What would you do? Option 1. Confront the man, risking a public clash that could unravel your composure. Option 2. Push through the discomfort and keep shopping, hoping the moment passes. Share your choice in the comments, type 1 or 2. And if stories of courage and transformation move you, subscribe to Daily Narrated Stories. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers, and your support helps us share more tales that inspire and heal. Martin approaches Elena, his smile tight, his hands clasped as if bracing for impact. "Good morning, ma'am. Can I assist you with anything?" His voice is polite, but his eyes betray his unease, flickering between Elena and the man in the suit. Elena adjusts the Lego set under her arm, the plastic crinkling softly. "I'm just picking out gifts for my niece," she says, her tone calm but firm, lifting the box as proof of her innocent intent. "I've got this, but I'm considering a puzzle too." Martin nods too quickly, his smile thinning. "We have a great selection of puzzles upstairs. Why don't I show you?" His words rush out, and Elena catches the tremor in his voice, a subtle crack in his facade. Her brow furrows, suspicion sparking in her chest. The puzzles are right there, their colorful boxes stacked neatly, princesses, dragons, fairy tale castles glowing under the fluorescent lights. "These look fine," she says, her voice steady, though her fingers tighten around the Lego box. "I'd prefer to stay here, if that's okay." Martin's smile falters, and he glances at the man in the suit, who's now watching with a clenched jaw, his polished shoes tapping an impatient rhythm on the tiled floor. "Well, we're preparing to rearrange this section," Martin stammers, the lie as flimsy as the tinsel on the nearby display. "It'd be best if you moved upstairs." The words hang heavy, laced with unspoken intent, and Elena feels a familiar anger simmering beneath her calm, a fire she's learned to control through years of discipline, but one that never fully extinguishes. She's faced this before, judgment disguised as concern, stares that linger too long, whispers that trail her like shadows. Her scar, a jagged map of her sacrifice, has become a lens through which others see her, often before they see the woman beneath. She takes a slow breath, the scent of peppermint mixing with the metallic tang of memory, sand in her lungs, the weight of her gear, the ticking of a bomb's timer in Mosul. That moment flashes vividly, the sun scorching her skin, her team moving through a narrow alley, the air thick with dust and distant gunfire. She's on her knees, tools spread before her, the timer on the IED counting down 10 seconds, 9, 8. Her hands are steady, her training overriding the fear pounding in her chest, but sweat drips into her eyes, blurring her vision. She cuts the wire at 2 seconds, the timer freezing, and her team cheers, their voices a chorus of relief. But the memory shifts, another explosion rocks the convoy, shrapnel tearing through the air, through her. She blinks, grounding herself in the present, and meets Martin's gaze with quiet resolve. "I don't see any signs of a rearrangement," she says, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I'd like to finish shopping here." The man in the suit steps forward, his daughter trailing behind like a curious shadow. "Martin, we had an agreement," he snaps, his voice sharp, ignoring Elena entirely. "My daughter is unsettled." His words slice through the festive chatter, and Elena glances at the girl, who looks more intrigued than upset, her wide eyes darting between the toys and Elena's face. The girl's lavender coat is slightly too big, sleeves slipping over her wrists as she clutches a stuffed bunny, her expression bright with wonder, not fear. "Mr. Langley," Martin begins, his voice shaky, sweat beading at his temples despite the cool air. "I'm trying to manage this delicately." "Handle it now," the man, Mr. Langley, demands, his tone cold, the kind of voice that expects obedience without question. Then he turns to Elena, his eyes narrowing as they land on her scar, a flicker of disdain crossing his face before he masks it with a thin veneer of civility. "This is a children's space," he says, his voice clipped. "My daughter is frightened, and I'm sure other customers are too." Elena feels a flush of heat in her cheeks, her scar prickling as if it senses the insult, a physical echo of the emotional sting. Her heart pounds, a drumbeat of anger and shame, but she forces herself to remain composed, her military training kicking in. "Control your breathing, assess the situation, respond with clarity." "I'm just shopping for my niece," she says, her voice firm but controlled, though her fingers dig into the Lego box, the plastic creaking under her grip. "I don't see how that's a problem." Mr. Langley gestures vaguely toward her face, his manicured hand dismissive. "Your appearance might scare the kids," he says, his words dripping with condescension. "There are other places you can shop." The words hit like a slap, sharp and cutting, and Elena is suddenly back in the hospital room after Mosul, staring at her reflection in a cracked mirror, her face a patchwork of bandages and raw scars. She cried then, not from the pain, but from the fear that this mark would define her forever. Now, in the toy store, that same fear claws at her, threatening to unravel the resilience she's fought to rebuild. A few customers turn to watch, their murmurs a low hum against the jingle of Christmas music. Elena notices a woman in a red coat holding her phone at an angle, the camera lens glinting as she records, and a teenage boy across the aisle types furiously, his thumbs a blur. The scene unfolds like a slow-motion crash, and Elena feels every eye on her, each stare a pinprick against her skin. "My appearance," she says, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands, "is a scar from serving this country for 9 years in the army. I was an explosive specialist." The words carry a quiet power, a declaration of her worth, but Mr. Langley doesn't flinch. "That's commendable," he says, his tone devoid of warmth, but it doesn't change the situation. His dismissal is a knife, slicing through her pride, and Elena feels the air grow heavy, the festive lights blurring at the edges of her vision. She considers her options: walk away, head held high, and preserve her dignity, or stand her ground and risk a public scene that could haunt her for weeks. Leaving feels like surrender, a betrayal of the soldier she was, but staying feels like a battle she's not sure she can win. Before she can decide, a small voice cuts through the tension, as clear and bright as a bell. "Daddy, why are you yelling at that lady?" The girl, with curly brown hair and a lavender coat, looks up at her father with innocent confusion, her stuffed bunny dangling from her hand. Mr. Langley falters, his polished facade cracking, caught off guard. "Clara, honey, Daddy's just talking," he says, his voice softer but strained, as if he's trying to convince himself as much as her. "Why don't you go look at the fairy dolls we saw?" But Clara doesn't move. She steps closer to Elena, her eyes bright with curiosity, her small boots scuffing against the floor. "What's on your face?" she asks, her voice free of judgment, filled with unfiltered wonder. "Clara." Mr. Langley hisses, horrified, his face flushing a deep red. He reaches for her arm, but Elena holds up a hand, a gentle gesture to stop him. She kneels to Clara's level, her military training kicking in. Meet fear with understanding, connect on their terms. The movement pulls at her scar, a faint ache radiating across her cheek, but she ignores it, focusing on the girl's wide, trusting eyes. "Hi, Clara," she says, her voice warm and steady, though her heart races with a mix of vulnerability and hope. "I'm Elena. I used to be a soldier, and this mark happened while I was keeping people safe." Clara's eyes widen, sparkling with awe, her mouth forming a small O of wonder. "Like a superhero?" she asks, her voice rising with excitement. Elena chuckles softly, the sound a release of tension she didn't realize she was holding. "Kind of," she says, a smile tugging at her lips. "I used to find bombs and stop them from hurting anyone." Clara's face lights up, her bunny nearly slipping from her grasp as she claps her hands. "That's so cool," she exclaims, her voice echoing through the aisle, drawing more eyes to the scene. "My daddy just works in an office and talks on the phone a lot." A few onlookers stifle laughs, the sound a soft ripple through the crowd, and Elena bites back a smile, her chest warming at the girl's honesty. Mr. Langley's face reddens further, his discomfort palpable, his hands clenching at his sides as if he's fighting the urge to flee. "Your scar looks like a shooting star," Clara says, tilting her head, her curls bouncing with emotion. "Like in my storybooks." The comparison catches Elena off guard, and for a moment, she sees her scar through Clara's eyes, not as a mark of trauma, but as something magical, something beautiful. Her throat tightens, a wave of emotion swelling inside her, and she blinks back the sting of tears. "I've never thought of it that way," she says, her voice soft, genuine. "Thank you. That's a beautiful way to see it." Clara grins, her smile wide and toothy, a gap where a front tooth is missing. "You'd be great at Halloween," she adds, her tone pragmatic, as if she's solving a puzzle. "I had to wear a princess crown last year, and it kept falling off." The child's words, so pure and unfiltered, bring a genuine laugh to Elena's lips, the sound light and freeing, cutting through the tension like sunlight. "You're right," she says, her smile widening. "I've got a costume ready all the time." Clara giggles, the sound infectious, and for a moment, the store feels like a sanctuary again, the Christmas lights casting a warm glow over the scene. But Mr. Langley's voice breaks the moment, his tone softer now, tinged with embarrassment. "Clara, that's enough," he says, taking her hand gently, though his grip is firm, as if he's trying to anchor himself. Clara pulls back, her small hand slipping from his. "I want to hear more about the bombs," she protests, her voice insistent. "Elena's a hero, Daddy." Mr. Langley's expression shifts, a flicker of shame crossing his face as the weight of the onlookers' stares presses down on him. The woman in the red coat is still filming, her phone steady, and the teenage boy has moved closer, his eyes darting between his screen and the drama. Elena feels the air grow heavy again, the scrutiny a tangible force, but Clara's words echo in her mind. A hero. It's a label she's heard before, from her commanding officer after a grueling mission, from her family when she returned home. But it's never felt as real as it does coming from this child, untainted by adult biases. Martin steps in, his voice nervous, his hands wringing together. "Mr. Langley, perhaps we can." "No." Mr. Langley cuts him off, raising a hand, his voice quieter now, almost resigned. He turns to Elena, his eyes meeting hers for the first time, though they quickly drop to the floor, unable to hold her gaze. "I'm sorry for my behavior," he says, his voice low, the words heavy with regret. "It was wrong." Elena nods, her dignity intact, though her heart still races, the adrenaline of the confrontation lingering in her veins. "I appreciate that," she says, her tone measured, though a small part of her wonders if the apology is genuine or a reaction to the growing audience. Clara, oblivious to the tension, isn't done. "Daddy, you said she should leave because she was scary," she says, her voice innocent but piercing, cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. "I'm not scared. I think she's amazing." Mr. Langley's embarrassment deepens, his shoulders slumping, his polished exterior crumbling under the weight of his daughter's honesty. "I was wrong, Clara," he says, his voice barely above a whisper, as if the admission costs him something he's not ready to give. Clara beams, her smile radiant, and turns to Elena, her eyes shining with curiosity. "Can I touch your scar?" she asks, her voice eager. "Does it hurt?" Mr. Langley interjects gently, his tone softer now, a father's instinct kicking in. "Clara, that might be too personal." "It's okay," Elena says softly, tilting her head to give Clara access, her heart pounding with a mix of vulnerability and gratitude. Clara's small fingers brush the scar, her touch feather-light, careful, as if she's touching something precious. "It feels bumpy," she says, her voice filled with wonder, "like my toy dragon scales." Elena smiles, the ache in her cheek fading under the warmth of Clara's curiosity. "It's a little different from the rest of my skin," she says, her voice steady now, grounded by the girl's presence. The doctors say it'll get softer over time. Clara nods solemnly, as if absorbing a great truth, then declares with the certainty only a child can muster, I think it's awesome. You're like a superhero with a magic mark. The words hit Elena like a wave, unexpected and powerful, crashing through the walls she's built around her heart. For years, she's hidden her scar, wrapping herself in scarves and shame, avoiding mirrors and pitying glances. She remembers her first grocery store visit after her discharge, the cashier's stare, then quick aversion, the pity more painful than any insult. She'd spent months scheduling appointments for early mornings or late evenings, when the world was quieter, less likely to notice her. But Clara's words, simple, honest, and kind, crack something open inside her, a fissure of light in the darkness she's carried for so long. Thank you, Clara, she says, her voice trembling slightly, the emotion raw and unfiltered. That means a lot. Mr. Langley clears his throat, his discomfort evident, but his tone changed, softer now, as if Clara's words have shifted something in him too. Elena, he says, hesitating, Clara and I were about to grab some hot cocoa at the cafe next door. Would you like to join us? The offer catches Elena off guard, a small olive branch amidst the tension, and she feels a flicker of hope, though her guard remains up. Yes. Clara squeals, clapping her hands, her bunny bouncing in her lap. Please come. I want to hear more about being a soldier. Elena glances at the Lego set in her hands, then at Clara's eager face, her heart softening at the girl's enthusiasm. I need to buy Lily's gift first, she says, her voice steady now, but I'd love to join you after. Mr. Langley nods, avoiding her gaze, his shame evident in the way his shoulders hunch, the way his hands fidget with his phone. Good, he says, extending a hand, his Rolex glinting under the lights. James Langley. Elena Carter, she replies, shaking his hand with a firm grip, her military training evident in the strength of her grasp. Martin steps forward, his face a mix of relief and guilt, his hands still ringing together. MS. Carter, he says, his voice hesitant, please let Dreamland Toys cover your niece's gift as an apology for this. He gestures vaguely at the scene, his discomfort palpable. Elena considers it, her pride warring with the practicality of the offer, then shakes her head. Thank you, she says, her voice firm, but I'd rather pay. Lily deserves a gift I bought myself. Martin nods, a flicker of respect in his eyes. At least let us offer a discount, he asks, his tone hopeful. I'll take that, Elena says with a small smile, a quiet victory in the gesture. As she checks out, Elena notices the crowd, some customers nod approvingly, their expressions soft with empathy, while others type furiously on their phones, their thumbs a blur as they share the moment with the world. The woman in the red coat is still filming, her phone steady, and the teenage boy has moved closer, his eyes darting between his screen and Elena, a mix of curiosity and excitement on his face. Elena feels the weight of their attention, a spotlight she never asked for, and a knot forms in her stomach as she realizes the story is spreading, a ripple effect she can't control. She imagines the headlines veteran shamed in toy store, arrogant CEO humbled by daughter, and wonders how this moment will define her, how it will shape the narrative of her life. The cafe next door is a warm haven, a stark contrast to the tension of the toy store, with garlands draped over the windows and the rich aroma of cocoa filling the air. Elena, James, and Clara settle at a table by the window, their drinks steaming in festive mugs decorated with snowmen and reindeer. Clara, her cheeks smeared with chocolate, leans forward, her eyes shining with admiration. So you stopped bombs? She asks, her voice filled with wonder. Like a treasure hunt? Elena laughs, the sound light and genuine, a release of the tension that's been coiled inside her since she stepped into the store. Sort of, she says, her smile warm, but I was looking for dangerous things to keep people safe. James watches, his expression a mix of guilt and curiosity, his fingers wrapped tightly around his mug as if it's an anchor. How long did you serve? He asks, his voice softer now, a genuine interest breaking through his earlier arrogance. 9 years, Elena replies, her fingers brushing her scar absent-mindedly, the motion a habit she can't shake. 2 tours in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq. She pauses, her eyes distant, the memories flooding back unbidden. She's back in Mosul, the sun scorching her skin through her uniform, the weight of her gear pressing against her shoulders. Her team moves through a narrow alley, the air thick with dust and distant gunfire. She's on her knees, tools spread before her, the timer on the IED ticking down 10 seconds, 9, 8. Her hands are steady, her training overriding the fear pounding in her chest, but sweat drips into her eyes, blurring her vision. She cuts the wire at 2 seconds, the timer freezing, and her team cheers, their voices a chorus of relief. But the memory shifts, the cheers turn to screams as another explosion rocks the convoy, shrapnel tearing through the air, through her. She blinks, grounding herself in the cafe's warmth, the scent of cocoa pulling her back to the present. "This happened in Mosul," she says, her voice quiet. "My last mission. An IED exploded near our convoy. I survived, others didn't." Her voice catches, the weight of those losses a burden she'll always carry, and she sees the faces of her fallen comrades, Sergeant Ramirez, who'd shared his last pack of gum with her, Lieutenant Harper, who'd sung off-key to keep their spirits up. James lowers his gaze to his mug, his knuckles whitening as he grips it tighter. "I never served," he admits, his voice heavy with regret. "My father pushed for the Naval Academy, but I went to Yale instead." "We all serve in our own ways," Elena says diplomatically, though the words feel hollow against the depth of her sacrifice. "Not like you did," James says, his voice raw, a crack in his polished facade. "I run a tech firm now, building apps, chasing profits. It's nothing compared to risking your life." "Daddy makes apps so people can play games," Clara chimes in, her understanding simplistic but proud, her chocolate-smeared smile a bright spot in the heavy moment. James gives a faint smile, a flicker of warmth breaking through his guilt. "Something like that, sweetheart," he says, ruffling her hair. He turns to Elena, his eyes meeting hers briefly before dropping again. "What I did today was inexcusable," he says, his voice low, the words heavy with shame. "I'm so sorry." "I've accepted your apology," Elena says simply, though a small part of her still aches, the wound of his words lingering like a bruise. James hesitates, then adds, his voice softer, more vulnerable, "It wasn't just about your scar. It's about me trying to shield Clara from everything. Her mother left us 3 years ago, and I've been overcompensating, buying her things, creating perfect moments." He pauses, his eyes distant, and Elena senses a deeper story, a pain he's not ready to share. She imagines him on the day his wife left, standing in their empty house, Clara crying in his arms as he tried to explain why Mommy wasn't coming back. "Mommy lives in Seattle with her friend Tom," Clara says casually, sipping her cocoa, her voice matter of fact, as if reciting a well-known fact. "She sends me pictures of her dog on Daddy's phone." James winces, the memory raw, his jaw tightening as he fights to keep his composure. "Clara's right," he says, his voice strained. "My ex decided she wanted a different life. Since then, I've been overly protective." Elena nods, understanding the instinct to shield loved ones, the fierce need to protect what matters most. "I enlisted for the same reason," she says, her voice soft, "to protect my family, my country." She thinks of her own family, her parents, who'd begged her not to join the army, and her younger sister, who'd cried when Elena deployed for the first time. "But you did it for others," James says, his voice tinged with regret, a self-awareness she hadn't expected. "I was only thinking of myself, my image, my comfort. Seeing Clara approach you so fearlessly, it humbled me. Could see the world so clearly." Elena smiles at Clara, who's now doodling on the window's condensation with her finger, her small hand tracing shapes in the fog. "Elena, I drew you," Clara announces, pointing to a stick figure with a cape and a star-shaped mark on its face. "You're a superhero." "That's beautiful, Clara," Elena says, her heart swelling, the simple drawing a reminder of the innocence that can heal even the deepest wounds. James looks at the drawing, then at Elena, a flicker of admiration crossing his face. "She's not wrong," he says, his voice quiet, a moment of connection amidst the lingering tension. But the moment is shattered as James's phone buzzes, the sound sharp and intrusive, and his face pales as he checks it. "Oh no," he says, his voice a mix of dread and resignation. "What is it?" Elena asks, her stomach tightening with a sense of foreboding. "We're viral," he says, showing her the screen. A video titled, "Tech Mogul Shamed by Veteran, His Daughter's Reaction Will Shock You," has already gained 10,000 views in an hour, the thumbnail a grainy image of Elena standing tall in the toy store, her scar stark against her face. James's expression a mask of discomfort beside her. Elena's stomach drops, a cold wave of panic washing over her. "I'm sorry, I didn't expect this," she says, her voice tight, the weight of the viral video a new burden she hadn't anticipated. "Don't apologize," James says firmly, though his hands tremble slightly as he sets the phone down. "I deserved it. I just hope it doesn't affect Clara." "What's viral, Daddy?" Clara asks, her voice curious, her eyes bright with excitement. "It means lots of people are watching something online," James explains gently, his voice strained as he tries to shield her from the reality of the situation. "Are we online?" "Can I see?" Clara asks, bouncing in her seat, her bunny bouncing with her. Later, "Sweetheart," James says, pocketing his phone, his expression a mix of guilt and concern. Elena watches James, noting the genuine concern in his eyes, the way his shoulders hunch protectively over Clara. Despite his earlier cruelty, she sees a father trying to do right by his daughter, a man grappling with his own flaws in the harsh light of public scrutiny. People are complex, she thinks, capable of both harm and growth, of insensitivity and redemption. "You know," she says after a moment, her voice soft, reflective, "after I was injured, I hid for a long time. I wore hats, avoided mirrors, only went out at night. I was so angry at myself, at the world." She pauses, the memories a heavy weight, the countless nights she'd spent staring at the ceiling, replaying the explosion, wondering if she could have saved her team if she'd been faster, smarter, better. "What changed?" James asks, his voice soft, a genuine curiosity in his tone. Elena smiles, her eyes distant, the memory a bittersweet balm. "My niece, Lily," she says, her voice warm with affection. "She was 6 then, like Clara now. The first time she saw me after I came home, she hugged me and said, 'And Elena, your face is different, but your hugs are still the best.' That's when I started to heal." The memory is vivid, Lily's small arms around her, the scent of her strawberry shampoo, the way her laughter had filled the room, chasing away the shadows of Elena's shame. Clara looks up from her drawing, her fingers smudged with condensation. "Hugs are the best," she says, her voice solemn, as if she's sharing a universal truth. "They really are," Elena agrees, her voice warm, a quiet gratitude settling in her chest. 3 weeks later, Elena is sipping tea in her cozy Chicago apartment, the steam rising in gentle curls as she watches snowflakes drift past her window, blanketing the city in a soft white hush. Her laptop pings with a new email, and her heart skips a beat as she sees the sender, James Langley. The subject line reads, "An invitation," and she opens it with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. The email is formal but warm, inviting her to the launch of a new initiative at his company, Veterans in Tech, a program to train and employ veterans in the tech industry. Attached is a photo of James and Clara smiling beside a poster featuring Elena's image, her scar proudly visible, her expression one of quiet strength. "With your permission, of course," the email reads. "Clara insisted you be the face of this program." Elena's throat tightens with emotion, her fingers trembling as she sets down her mug. She recalls a moment from her last mission in Mosul. Her team gathered around a small fire, sharing a meal of MREs under a starlit sky, their laughter a fragile shield against the weight of war. She defused a bomb that day, her hands steady despite the sweat dripping into her eyes, and her team had toasted her with lukewarm coffee, calling her their guardian angel. That memory, paired with Clara's kindness, reminds her of the bridges scars can build, connections forged through shared humanity, through the courage to see beyond the surface. She types a reply, her fingers steady now, a quiet resolve in her heart. "I'll be there." 6 months later, Elena stands on a stage in front of tech leaders, veterans, and reporters, the spotlight warm against her skin, her scar a badge of honor under the bright lights. As the director of Veterans in Tech, she introduces the first graduating class, 20 veterans now starting careers in software development and cybersecurity, their faces a mix of pride and nervous excitement. She sees herself in them, the same determination, the same hunger for a new beginning, and her heart swells with a fierce pride. James claps enthusiastically beside Clara, who waves a handmade sign reading "Hero Elena and her amazing friends," the glitter on the sign sparkling under the lights. At the reception, James pulls Elena aside, his expression a mix of gratitude and awe. "You turned my worst moment into something meaningful," he says, watching the veterans mingle with executives, their laughter a melody of hope. "I was so focused on status, on appearances." "We all stumble," Elena replies, her voice soft but firm, a quiet wisdom in her words. "What matters is how we rise." James nods, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "Clara talks about you all the time," he says, a small smile tugging at his lips. "She says she wants to be a soldier like you when she grows up." Elena smiles, her heart warming at the thought. "Tell her I hope she becomes exactly who she is right now," she says, her voice filled with affection for the little girl who changed everything. James lowers his voice, a note of excitement in his tone. "The program's growing," he says. "For other companies are adopting our model, and we're in talks to expand nationally." "That's incredible," Elena says, her heart swelling with pride, a sense of purpose she hasn't felt since her days in uniform. Clara said something yesterday, James adds with a chuckle, his eyes softening at the memory. She said, Daddy, sometimes bad things happen so good things can grow. She's 6, and she gets something I'm just starting to understand at 42. Elena looks around the room, filled with lives transformed by a single moment of confrontation turned into connection, veterans finding new purpose, executives learning the true meaning of service, and a little girl who unknowingly became the catalyst for it all. Her scar, once a source of shame, now feels like a badge of honor, a map to her courage, as Clara once called it, a testament to the battles she's fought and the bridges she's built. Elena gently touches her scar, no longer a symbol of pain but a testament to resilience and transformation. Some scars never fade, but they can become bridges to deeper understanding for those who bear them and those who learn to see beyond them. This battle-worn skin whispers stories of bravery and sacrifice, more precious than any treasure. Some turn away, some stare in judgment, but beneath it lies a heart that refuses to break. In a world obsessed with perfection, there's wisdom in flaws, truth in the marks we carry. What adults miss through their clouded lenses, children see with wonder and clarity. These marks are my storms. These marks are my constellations. They trace where I've been. They reveal who we are, not badges of shame, but emblems of pride. The beauty of strength blooms deep within, a quiet power that refuses to dim. Sometimes, it takes a child's innocence to show us what's real, a pure acceptance that heals. One act of kindness, one moment of grace, can shift a heart, can transform a space. And perhaps the wounds we hide are the very things that guide us through. When we learn to see with unfiltered eyes, we find perfection in what we once despised. Take a moment to reflect. Have you ever judged someone too quickly, only to realize their story runs deeper than the surface? Or have you carried a scar, visible or invisible, that taught you strength? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear how this story resonates with you. At Daily Narrated Stories, we believe in the power of connection through storytelling, and your voice matters in this community. Elena's journey reminds us that courage isn't just in the battles we fight, it's in the vulnerability we embrace, the forgiveness we offer, and the hope we nurture. Her scar, once a source of shame, became a beacon of change, uniting veterans with new beginnings, teaching a father humility, and inspiring a little girl to see heroism in the everyday. As Clara said, sometimes bad things happen so good things can grow, a truth that echoes in every life touched by this story. Don't miss out on more stories like Elena's, tales that uplift, inspire, and remind us of the resilience within us all. Subscribe to Daily Narrated Stories right now and join our growing family as we aim for 1,000 subscribers this month. Hit that bell icon so you never miss a moment of transformation, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Time is fleeting, and these stories are too powerful to miss. Be part of the change with Daily Narrated Stories, where every narrative sparks hope and healing. Let's make a difference, one story at a time.